Everyone is arguing about masculinity right now. But at the same time, it seems like almost no one can actually define it. If masculinity is not greed, dishonesty, using people, chasing status symbols, needing to feel superior, masculinity is strength, discipline, integrity, emotional control, protection, and leadership. Strength can be self control, strength can be kindness, strength can be love. And the common thread underneath all of that in the manosphere is the prioritization of the ego, the need for constant comparison to others, the need for dominance over other men, calling men you view as lesser men soy boys or whatever the fuck. It's all about the Lambos and the house and the hot chicks. Yeah, those things are cool, but like, do you have a purpose in it, or is it just doing it for the sake of doing it? I've known a lot of rich people in my life, and let me tell you what, the ones who didn't really have a purpose behind it, that shit gets boring real quick, and they seriously find a way to blow all their money and fuck it up. That's the truth. Strong men aren't particularly worried about other men are doing, because they're doing their own thing, and they're doing it well. A true shift in your manhood will come when you develop true self awareness. You understand what's blocking you. You understand what triggers you. You understand where you need to do the work. And then you find purpose. You get down to it and say, who am I really? What do I want out of this life? And then you can build an empire out of that if you want. And that will give you the internal validation that you're seeking. It seems like almost everyone is arguing about masculinity right now. But at the same time, it seems like almost no one can actually define it. If masculinity is really about money, power, control, why are so many of the men practicing it seem angry, lonely, stuck? I watched Inside the Manosphere, and it honestly exposed not just the toxicity of some of these beliefs, but the loneliness and the trap that so many young men are getting stuck in, and how they're getting pulled deeper into it day by day. Unfortunately, the manosphere doesn't seem to pull in men who are confident and fulfilled. It pulls in men who are lacking strong father figures, guys who feel behind financially, socially. Men are confused about the pressures of society and why real life doesn't match what they see on TV or in social media. And it leaves them feeling frustrated and lonely, and sometimes struggling to build meaningful relationships with women. All of these things combined create a perfect storm for young men to be pulled into ideologies that might have some kernels of truth, but aren't representations of what a strong man really is and what goals one should have in life to live a fulfilled life. They're being recruited, not because they're weak, but because they're searching. But at the same time, they're searching without perhaps some of the emotional tools and no real framework for self-worth outside of money and status, because that's what's shoved down our throats most of the time. This combination makes the perfect target for manipulation. These influencers sell courses, programs, systems, affiliate pipelines, and crypto scams, and multi-level marketing style setups a lot of the time, which is obviously problematic. And the other aspect of some of these programs and the way that these influencers kind of work their crowd, it develops an addiction to quick wins over long-term growth. Yeah, quick wins are great sometimes. Who doesn't love to turn $5 into 100, turn 5,000 into 15,000, whatever. But if you're always obsessed with quick wins, you're just going to be the guy that hooks up with girls, doesn't really develop a relationship with anyone, and then is 40 plus and wondering why he's still single and doesn't know how to relationship at that age. And in general, you just have a living in the moment way of looking at life all the time. And yes, we should be living in the moment, but we should be thinking about where our decisions lead us every day. Because our paths do change. Every decision we make branches off into something new, right? So when you make decisions, make good ones in the present, but don't forget about the future too. So when you're out there, when you're making decisions, everyone we make has a split off, right? I choose the red cup, I choose the blue cup. Okay, maybe that's not a good red pill, blue pill comparison. I didn't mean to do that. You know, I make this one business decision or I make another. There's a split off there, whichever way I decide. And in the moment, you got to do what makes sense. But you also have to be not thinking about what happens today. You have to be thinking about, okay, how can I do better for the future? Does this bring me closer to a better future? Think about that. And the irony is that men are being told that they're, quote, escaping the system by being pulled into systems that exploit them and make money off of their pain. These young men are convinced that they're being sold freedom, but the business model depends on them staying stuck. And the result is more debt, more frustration, more comparison to their life in real life and what they see out there on social media, and a deeper emotional spiral ultimately. Hey everybody, what's up? My name's Ash. I'm a life coach and I help people going through big life shifts, spiritual awakenings, and trying to find their purpose. It can be hard to figure out those next steps and figure out how to connect from point A to point B. And that's what we're here for. I post new episodes every week. Helpful life tips, some content for the neurospicy folk who are ADHD or autistic. So like this video, subscribe. If you're looking for more, I've got my social media links and my website link in the description below. And what is this red pill ideology? The idea that you've become awakened to the way the world actually works and you've decided to escape it. Great. There is some truth to that. Yes, there are elite power structures on this planet. Yes, wealth is concentrated. Elites exist, and yes, they do have a very good handle on how things happen and find a way to make more money and more power and more whatever they need, resources, happen for them, and at the expense of everyday people like you and me. But, like with most things, there might be elements of truth there, but a lot of times things can take a hard left turn somewhere and you're like, whoa, 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 wait a minute, pump the brakes. And with the red pill ideology, two things come up. One, views towards women, and two, views towards specific groups of people, mostly Jewish people. I could do a whole video separate and aside from this. There is a spiritual pipeline to anti-Semitism. There is a red pill, like alpha male pipeline to anti-Semitism. And those things are very real. They start out with small elements of the truth, but they get mischaracterized, they get misappropriated to larger swaths of people. First of all, when we're talking about our spiritual selves, any ideology that causes you to look at one group of people, one ethnicity, one religion, and blame them for all the problems, anything that takes you away from oneness and leans you towards separateness, is a red flag. That's not what we're supposed to be about. That's not spirituality. That's not evolving as a human being. We don't need to go backwards and re-experience some of these things to understand that. I'd like to think that we've learned from mistakes of the past and we can crawl ourselves back out of this without blaming any one group for our problems. All of that is centered in fear, and that will never carry us forward. But in general, the moment that any belief system tells you to blame one group for your problems, you're not learning anymore. You're just being programmed. Elites are not one race, one ethnicity, one religion or ideology. History shows that power has consolidated across many civilizations, across the world, across different periods of time. Some of the occult practices that elites do seem to be drawn to. There is a history of this basically since the beginning of civilization, that people who acquire a certain level of money and power, they start craving more and they start getting interested in some of the more fringe, esoteric aspects of life. And some of it is legit, alchemy and astrology and all of that. But there are cult-like beliefs and pretty dark ritualistic beliefs that have spanned across time, and some of those have been rooted in pre-biblical times, and some of those have been fringe beliefs that broke off from Judaism and were like a small movement that died. And I'm not saying that, you know, some of that never trickled out and none of those beliefs exist anymore. But to say that those beliefs belong to one giant group of people, that's crazy, man. Chill. Come on. We have to use our common sense. We have to use rationality. There is dark shit out there. I think the Epstein files have given us just the tip of the iceberg of how dark things can get for people who are unhealed and have endless resources. There is a level of depravity that exists that is shocking to consciousness, and it's okay to acknowledge that. None of those things are representative of an entire population or entire religion. Fringe belief exists in every culture. Turning them into a blanket identity is how division spreads. We don't need that anymore. And the other, perhaps equally controversial aspect of the manosphere and the red pill ideology is the treatment of women, the views on women. Particularly, one of the things that came up in the documentary was the idea of one-sided monogamy, meaning in this scenario where in a heterosexual relationship, the husband, let's say, the man is allowed to step outside the relationship and perhaps bring third parties into the relationship or just have separate evenings out with other women. And the female in the relationship is expected to be monogamous to their partner. They aren't allowed to step outside the relationship. I want to say that two consenting adults can choose to live however they wish. And I do not pass judgment. That being said, when it is framed as a power imbalance, when it is framed as control, when it is framed as one person benefiting at the expense of another, that's when things kind of change. That's not really empowerment, it's avoidance. You can't really build a real, authentic life with someone you don't respect at the end of the day. If you're a successful man and you view your female partner as somebody who's there to look pretty, do what you ask, take care of the kids, and, you know, have relations whenever you want, and you're allowed to go out and do your own thing, but she's not. Are you really building an authentic relationship with that person? There's an automatic dynamic of imbalance there. You can be the most masculine man and take care of very male aspects of the boyfriend or husband role, whatever you want to call it. And you can build a true partnership with your female partner. You know, mutual respect. You can have different roles, but equal value. And you can have real, honest communication. Real masculinity isn't about controlling women. It's about having the strength to meet one as an equal. Here's what masculinity is not. Masculinity is not greed, dishonesty, using people, chasing status symbols, needing to feel superior over other men, over other people. Masculinity is strength, discipline, integrity, emotional control, protection, and leadership. Strength doesn't have to be cruelty. Strength doesn't have to be greed. Strength can be self-control. Strength can be kindness. Strength can be love. And the common thread underneath all of that in the manosphere is the prioritization of the ego at all times. And what I mean by that is most of this ideology is ego-driven. The need for constant comparison to others, the need for dominance over other men, you know, calling men you view as lesser men soy boys or whatever the fuck. The need for constant validation from other men, especially, and from society by achieving status mostly. You know, it's all about the Lambos and the house and the hot chicks. Yeah, those things are cool, but like, do you have a purpose in it, or is it just doing it for the sake of doing it? Because I've known a lot of rich people in my life, and let me tell you what, the ones who didn't really have a purpose behind it, that shit gets boring real quick, and they seriously find a way to blow all their money and fuck it up. That's the truth. Here's a gut check for you. Be honest with yourself. If you feel the need to feel superior to other men especially, to feel like a man. That's not power. That's insecurity. Strong men aren't particularly worried about what other men are doing because they're doing their own thing and they're doing it well. You can admire other men. You can take some notes on what they're doing and say, hey, I like that idea. Let me, sprinkle some elements of that into what I'm doing. But you should ultimately be doing your own thing, something that aligns with you, something that gives you purpose. You can achieve status and money and the things that make you feel secure, to build a future for yourself and whoever you love. But you'll be a lot more fulfilled if you do it with purpose. A true shift in your manhood will come when you develop true self-awareness. You understand what's blocking you. You understand what triggers you. You understand where you need to do the work. And then you find purpose. You get down to it and say, who am I really? What do I want out of this life? And then you can build an empire out of that if you want. And that will give you the internal validation that you're seeking. If you're always seeking for the external validation out there, you're not going to get it in here. You understand? Your ego will chase status. Your higher self will learn to build something real. And eventually achieve status, but in a way that is meaningful. What do I feel like are the things that make me feel most male? And how can I be a better man for myself, for my partner, for my future, my kids? Try not to look to social media for that. Try to just look within. I think you'll find much healthier, more balanced answers there. The loudest voices online are telling you to just dominate everything, power through everything. And yes, there's great things about power, but the strongest men I've ever met, they've just mastered themselves. They're not trying to master the world around them. In martial arts, we talk about a lot that when you're in there, when you're fighting, when you're sparring, you're not really fighting an opponent. You're fighting yourself. You're fighting the holes in your technique. You're fighting your timing. You're fighting your speed. You're fighting how sore you came to practice today. You're fighting your demons, man. That's really all it is. That's all we're all trying to do here. But don't get sucked into the belief that fighting your demons and doing better in life requires you to step on somebody else, whether it be a woman, whether it be looking down your nose at other people. It's not a way to live. It's not going to make for a peaceful world. Nobody really has to lose for you to win, if that makes sense. The truth is, masculinity isn't really broken. It's just been distorted a bit. It's been polarized. You're either alpha or you're a soy boy. You're either hot or you're not. You're either a red pill or you're a beta cuck. There's no in between. There's no balance in any of that. If you're a man watching this, the question isn't, how do I win? It's, who do I want to become? You'll find a way to win when you answer the who do I become question. I promise. I'm curious what you guys think. What does masculinity mean to you? And if you've ever been pulled into this content before, maybe you've escaped, or maybe you're just kind of like questioning, what does it feel like to be on the inside? I'm honestly dying to know, because I don't happen to know too many people that are deep into this. Anyways, spend some time in the real world. Have real conversations with real people. Stay out of these fucking echo chambers on social media. So, get out in nature. Ask yourself what you really want out of life as a man. Stay out of these social media echo chambers. Ask yourself the big questions. And do that self-reflection that will lead you to a real purpose. Happy whatever day it is. Peace.